Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Vance of Ohio is recognized.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the panel for tolerating this Arctic condition they've put this hearing room in. It's really cold in here, but I want to ask, direct my question to Mr. Barr, and one of my concerns here is that we have a San Francisco Fed that clearly was asleep at the wheel. I think a basic examiner's review would have said that Silicon Valley Bank had some serious problems. And the fact that we didn't identify it until the bank effectively blew up is a serious problem. So one of the things we've seen is the San Francisco Fed is clearly focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and also climate risk. And I, as a person who recognizes that if you're focused on one thing, you're fundamentally not as focused on other things, I want to sort of target this particular thing. So instead of focusing on the safety and soundness of our banking system, the San Francisco Fed was busy publishing economic letters and research on a number of social justice causes. Some of the selected titles include Disappointing Facts About the Black-White Wage Gap, How Are Racial and Gender Gaps Limiting the Full Potential of Your State's Economy, hosting seminars and publishing primers on racial equity, making a commitment that their equity goals would help to drive their approach to hiring, and that's not to mention their involvement in the Fed's Racism in the Economy series. Now, that's just after a quick scan of the San Francisco Fed's website. I worry that when you have the San Francisco Fed sounding a little bit more like an Ivy League political science or economics department, that you miss some things. And Mr. Barr, could you explain how this research and these activities support the Fed's monetary dual mandate or supervisory charge to ensure safety and soundness in the banking sector? How does this actually help?
Senator, let me start by just talking about the particular case of SVB. The review did not find any evidence that the supervisors were distracted by other activities. They were focused on the right set of risks in the bank with respect to liquidity, risk management, and interest rate risk. But the findings were that they didn't act forcefully enough to get the bank to move quickly enough to change those factors. So that's the basic backdrop. With respect to your question, the Federal Reserve banks do have a wide range of freedom being able to conduct research that they think is important to understanding economic drivers in our economy, and some of those economic drivers include the issues that you discussed.
So here I guess is the question is it your view, Mr. Barr, that if the Fed is doing these seminars on climate risk, on diversity, equity, inclusion, and so forth, instead of seminars on risk management, because again, there's only so much time in the day, do you just think that it doesn't have any effect on their focus and on the things that they're thinking about when they're doing their basic job? The
evidence in the review is that the supervisors were focused on the right set of risks. They were focused on basic, risk management at the firm in terms of interest rate risk, liquidity risk. They found that the bank was not well managed with respect to its activities. They were graded a deficient 1. So the issue, at least with respect to SVB that we saw, was that it was about the forcefulness of action that the supervisors didn't take in time to change the nature of the firm.
I appreciate that, Mr. Barr. I understand that the review didn't find that this was distracting enough, but I just wonder, separate what the review found and think about the way that human minds work, where if we're focused on one thing, we're fundamentally not focused on something else. There's only so much cognitive bandwidth the average human being has. I really worry that the more that the regulators are focused on things that have nothing to do with systemic or individual financial risk, the less and less safe our financial system is going to be. And I understand that the point that you're making, the review found that the focus was not a problem here, but this is all overdetermined. It's incredibly difficult to say with any conclusive evidence, either in my direction or in your direction, that the focus on these non-risky financial issues caused a problem. But are you worried that we reach a sort of tipping point where the focus on building progressive politics into our risk assessment starts to actually harm our ability to really analyze whether these banks are a problem?
I don't think politics should play any role in risk assessment. And as I said, in this case, we don't see evidence of of that in the record.
Well, I agree with that point. That politics shouldn't play any role here. And Mr. Chairman, I'll yield my time, but just to say that, I'll say this the third time actually. We can only do so much in a given day, and the more that we distract ourselves from focusing on financial risk and instead focus on climate risk and other things, I worry it's going to cause our financial system to be much less safe. Thank you, Mr. Barr.
Senator Tester of Montana is recognized.